Most people often make the mistake of thinking that they need more motivation or discipline, but oftentimes it's actually because you're not focusing on what actually matters. When everything in your life is important, you jump from one thing to another and everything fights for your attention. As a result, you end up not moving forward and actually getting things done. As a senior program manager, I've actually seen what happens when teams focus on too many things at once. The project stalls, the deadlines begin to slip, and everything becomes very chaotic and people don't know who's working on what and who's doing what. The exact same thing happens in your life when you try to focus on too many things at once. Today, I'm going to help you clear some of that noise, help you focus on what truly matters, and to actually start to make progress and move forward. Subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Let's dive right in. The number one point of why you feel stuck is what I call the too many tabs open effect. Feeling stuck is not necessarily always about working hard or not working hard enough. It's likely because life feels like you've got about 50 tabs open and you're trying to cycle in between each one of them to try to figure out which one is important and which one are you going to work on today. So you find yourself constantly bouncing back between tasks and bouncing back between quote unquote priorities, and you actually don't get much done. And at the end of the day, when you sit down to look back at your day and see how much you've progressed or how much you've done, it feels like you haven't done much and you're just spinning your circles every single day. The issue here is not necessarily the effort that you're putting in or not putting in. It's often the mental clutter and the fact that you have too many things that you're trying to move all at once and you're lacking focus on the right things. Living this way with the too many open tabs mentality, it's impossible to focus. It's impossible to move in a materialistic way on one thing. So you end up making very small incremental progress in these little things, and ultimately it doesn't add up, and it just leads to more frustration and constantly being overwhelmed every single day. One thing I have learned is that if everything is important in your life, then truly nothing is important in your life. Think about that for a second. You feel stuck because you're being pulled into too many different directions. Your brain is overloaded, your schedule is overloaded, and you're juggling and multitasking too many things. You often find yourself thinking that if only you had more time throughout the day, if only you had more than 24 hours throughout the day. You don't need more time and you don't need more motivation. What you need is clarity on what actually matters, because once you get clarity on the things that actually matter, then you can actually get a lot done in that 24-hour time block that we all have and start to make progress. There's a mechanism, or rather a mental model, that I like to use for things like this, and it's called the North Star test. This test is something that product managers and engineers use whenever they're developing a product for a customer. They ask themselves one question most of the time, and that is, if they could only build a product that would accomplish one thing for a customer, what would that one thing be? When they find the answer to that, the one thing that the customer cares about the most, that is their biggest pain point, and they build the product towards that thing and towards solving that pain point, they are on their way to having a good product and will actually start to move the project and the building of the product forward. That same test can be applied to your life too, because life really is one big project. You can ask yourself a simple question whenever you feel stuck and you're juggling too many things, and that is, if I could only accomplish one thing this year, what would it be? If I could only accomplish one thing this week, or if I could only accomplish one thing this month, what could it be? that thing, that answer is going to be your North Star. That is the thing that is going to guide you. And once you define it, you can now align every single thing that you do towards that North Star. And just like product managers and engineers, you can start to build your life towards that thing, build your life towards accomplishing and solving that particular pain point. And you'll be very surprised at just how much you start to make progress when you think about living towards a North Star. The goal here isn't to have more time or to get more things done. Rather, the goal is to have more of the right things done in the 24-hour period that we all have. Once you have defined your North Star and you now know what you want to focus on, there is something that happens and something that will slowly creep up into your life, and you become susceptible to this trap. And this trap is what I call the everything is a priority trap. Most people confuse writing down a to-do list with prioritization. There's a very distinct difference between the two. Listing out everything that feels important is good to do, and it's an exercise that you should do to have everything written down. But when you start to look at that to-do list as things that you have to get done and they all equally weigh the same, you fall into the everything is a priority list, and you start to feel overwhelmed, and that's going to lead to indecision and doing things slow. And ultimately, you feel like you're not making any progress when you prioritize everything on your to-do list. So with this mindset that if everything is urgent and important, nothing gets prioritized, then what do you do about it? The reality is that not all things are created equal. So not all things on your priority list are created equal. So if we take a moment and imagine a priority list where you sit down and you write down a priority list. So you find key point number 1 is to get promoted. Number 2 is to start a side hustle, to work out 5 times a week, to improve your relationships, and to read 20 books a year. These are all amazing goals, and these are all great and things that you should strive for. But if you really start to think about this list, get promoted at work, that's a pretty big undertaking. That's going to take a lot of hours. You're already working, you're already putting in a lot of hours at work, and now you have to put in even more hours. You potentially have to stay late to improve your skills and to network and to get better at your job. Starting a side hustle is a whole entire big undertaking in itself. It's essentially like having a second job, and in many respects, if you're working full time and you start a side hustle, you're going to be pretty much working 2 jobs. Working out 5 times a week now requires for you to carve out time. Improving your relationship often means that you have to spend time and invest time in those relationships, and reading 20 books a year means you have to find time to read books every single day or very often throughout the week. So when you start to think about your to-do list in this manner, you realize that you can't get any of this done all at one time. So that becomes a problem now. Which one do you work on? Most of the time we choose not to work on any of them, or we choose to work on all of them and end up not actually accomplishing any of them. So in project management, there is a way that they fix this type of problem when they're working on new projects that has a lot of different priorities or different features that they need to deliver, is they force rank priorities, meaning instead of treating everything as equal, they will force rank to find what are the most priority things in this list. You can ask yourself this question: if I could accomplish one thing this month from this list, what would it be? This is a very similar question to the North Star test and builds upon that North Star test we talked about in point number 1. Once you identify your number 1 priority, you can now align your daily actions, align your goals, align your tasks to that one particular thing. So, for example, if we take our to-do list and we take our number 1 item on there, which is get promoted at work, that is the one thing that you're going to focus on this month, meaning the free time that you do have outside of your work, you can spend that time reading books, listening to a podcast, watching videos about a skill that's going to translate directly into your book, and just bettering yourself so that you're well positioned for that promotion. Same thing, if you're going to start a side hustle, that is the thing that you're going to focus on. That is the number one thing you're going to prioritize. So the time that you do have free to spend on the side hustle, you're going to spend it researching side hustles, figuring out which ones you are interested in, which ones that you can actually start, and you can keep going with this particular method and apply it to all the other items that are on your to-do list. So that is why it is critical to use the North Star test to find out what is the one thing you're going to accomplish this year, and then further sharpen that and hone that by force prioritizing that list and really figuring out what is the one thing that you're going to focus on this week or focus on today. And that leads us into point number 3, which is the one move that matters. What this point will help you to do now is, now that you have your North test, which is going to sharpen and hone in on the thing that you're going to work on this year, and you now know how to prioritize your list to really focus on what truly matters, there is the one move that matters. Meaning this is the one thing that you're going to prioritize and do today in order to move your North Star forward. Each morning you wake up and you ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do today to move closer to my North Star? So if your North Star is to work out 5 times a week and to have a better body, then the one move that you're going to do today is you're going to carve out some time, 30 minutes, an hour, to go to the gym or do a workout at home or go outside and walk and run, whatever physical activity that you want to do. That is going to be your one move that you're going to do today in order to move forward to your North Star. And you apply that to the next day and the next day and the next day. So what ends up happening is that every single day, you're asking yourself these critical questions to move that North Star forward. And as you do this on a daily basis, as you get into several weeks into it, several months into it, you start to realize that you're actually getting closer to that North Star. You're actually getting closer to that goal. And ultimately you reach it. And because you've sharpened your focus and you're now headed towards one specific thing, you're actually moving a lot faster in a lot less time. And that 24 hours that used to feel frustrating and used to feel like it's not enough, now feels like you can actually get a lot of things done. Last critical step to this last move, and this is a very, very important key to this move, and this is kind of going to make it or break it for you, and it's going to determine whether or not you're going to succeed in this move, and that is the daily or weekly reflection on asking yourself a question. Did I progress towards my North Star today? If you didn't progress towards your North Star today, start to look at why. Start to look at what happened. Where did you spend your time? What took you away from your time? And how can you adjust and either put more emphasis on prioritizing your one thing, or maybe shifting that one thing to a later part of your day to make sure that you get it in. This is going to reinforce that habit in your life. And this is going to add an extra layer of self-accountability. This is what program managers, what product managers, and what project managers do on big projects, is they audit these projects and they self-reflect to see what did they get done, what didn't they get done, why or why not, and they adjust and then they move accordingly and get those things done. So you can do the exact same thing in your life. Getting unstuck is one thing. Staying focused is an even harder thing. If you want to learn this method that I use to prioritize things in my life, watch this episode right here.